And I'm going to start recording on our side as well. And as I was preparing for this morning, and just mapping out, you know, working remotely, stress and productivity, I think now it's not even about working remotely, it's just about stress. Because there's stress in the workplace, there's stress when you're working from home, there's stress in business. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, because I think at the center of it all, the common thread is stress.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I'm just sending Seth an email, because they're going to try and share this live, Sipho. So I'm just sending him a link quickly.
Okay.
For some reason, I still can't pick up share on my... So if I go to the bottom where it says more, normally it would say share on Facebook or share on YouTube, and I just cannot... It just says disable or enable video recording. It just has no share button any longer. I don't know why.
Is this the more button? I also don't have it anymore, actually.
Do you also not have it?
No, I don't.
And I checked our settings, and our settings definitely are set up. So we must just have a look at our settings again, Sipho.
That's fine, Trish.
Okay, because there's no share to Facebook, YouTube, but when I looked at the settings, it's there. The YouTube's link, the Facebook's link, so I don't know what it is.
We must
so
just afterwards. Yeah, let's just have a look at it afterwards again, and then we can just take it from there.
Okay, I've just sent Seth the link at the top of the page, and I hope that will suffice, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So Werner, around your mindfulness work, I mean, what's the common trend now with regards to anyone that you're working with, especially in light of the current context?
Yeah, it's I've got a variety of people, but as you say, mostly stress-related things, changing the relationship towards stress. And then I've got a few here and there people doing it for sort of like athletes for high performance as well. Because that work, the same work I do with the various states, an athlete needs to be sort of in that safe space to experience that flow state. So, or the zone of optimal performance. That's pretty much where I'm at. But at the moment, mostly dealing with people struggling with anxiety, depression.
And are you doing most of your work online, Werner?
Most of it's online still. I still see here and there, I still see someone in person. Some people, maybe that's got something physical going on, also need to come see me in person. But a lot of the work's online, which is, it's a challenge because I'm not used to that as well. But we're getting better at it. So, but yeah, some things get lost online, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how effective are you finding it online? Are you finding it just way less effective, or is it, you know, is it sufficing for what you need to do?
If it's, I would say, if it's someone that I already worked with for a while, it's okay because we know each other. Someone that's coming in new, it's maybe a bit tricky because, I mean, we've never met in person, and there's that element of trust.
Difficult. I'm going to just watch that.
Which is difficult online.
I'm curious at a structure of, especially, I mean, of the consultation. Let's say I were to come to you for stress, you know, especially during this time, and coming online. What would the structure of that session look like?
You mean in terms of the consultation?
Yes.
Yeah, so I like to sort of look at their current problem, why they're coming to me in the first place. And then I just sort of ask questions as to how they deal with stress states, depression states. I like to look at history, especially history of trauma, because that will sort of inform me as to sort of the direction let's go. But it's very intuitive work. You know, you sort of, like I mentioned to you, some things work for someone and other things won't work for that person. So you got to test it out. But I mean, my system that I work with is the nervous system, and we all got the same one. So that's sort of my map that I work with. But yeah, that's sort of it. Just asking questions, trying to get to find out a little bit more about that person.
And then what are common symptoms, especially when you're looking at the nervous system, that people should look out for when it comes to stress? And I say this because, at times, because you don't know what something is meant to feel like, maybe let's say you don't know what stress feels like, and you've got a consistent headache, but you don't want to pay too much attention, you just continue with life, So what are the warning signs that people should be looking out for?
Well, for me personally, I look for, like I mentioned yesterday, the face. So the face will tell you a lot, because the vagus nerve that I'm trying to activate, it's got direct links to the neck muscles, so the head, turning the head, the voice, the eyes. So you can immediately see if a person is sort of in fight, flight, or depressed state. You look at the posture also, because if you think about it, your nervous system sends signals to the muscles as well. So you'll go into various postures. If it's chronic stress, you'll start experiencing muscle ache, obviously tension. If it's years and years of chronic stress, you'll start getting things like irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, those type of things. Chronic fatigue syndrome, all those things are sort of the byproduct of chronic stress.
And it's funny you mentioned tension, because obviously in mindful movement, and when you're scanning the body, you're listening out for those tension areas of stiffness and so on, and the build up of tension,
Yes.
and the impact of stress and all of these things on the body. And it's always interesting whenever I'm teaching a yoga class, it's all about, you're trying to release that tension, the build up of that. And I think the one thing that I personally can't comprehend is how all of that builds up onto the body, that it feels like pain.
I mean, it's sort of almost very unpredictable. You could sort of predict what's going to happen. Like I said, everyone's different, but we sort of react in predictable ways. And as you know, the body is the source that you can go into, that you can get a lot of information from the body. It's tricky bringing in the mind, trying to think your way out of these states. So if I'm in a depressed state, it's very hard for me to think myself out of the state, because my perception is going to be quite negative. So you have to move into the body and sort of, but it takes time, because it's very different in the way that we usually deal with stress. It's not, we usually try and, positive thoughts, that whole cognitive behavioral thing that we used to, that you got to think positive. It's sometimes it's a negative feedback loop. So you sort of, you don't get the results that you get, and then you negative again, and then it just goes round and round. So you sort of go into the body more than the mind, but it's tricky because we're not used to that.
And how does
she's on her way, guys? She's coming now.
I think your light is quite dark. I can hardly see your face. Is
that not me?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Unless it's just me.
No, it could be.
Yeah, it is quite dark. There we go.
See.
That's, okay, it's back now.
So dark.
It's back, okay. Let me try.
It did something.
It's something good.
Yeah, it's better though. It's better than what it was before. It's a bit lighter. Yeah. I get my question was.
Maybe if you face the opposite direction, I don't know. I'm not a good one to advise. I'm never very light.
Yeah, then.
If you try and change direction, to face more of the light,
Let me try and move.
It's still dark, eh?
Let me go into the other room. I might be a bit.
Sorry, Ben.
No problem.
Lunga, your light's good there, hey?
Yeah, I had to move to the other side of the table. Yesterday I was
it looks good. I think Sipho and I must come into the offices. The light's better there, Sipho.
Yeah, and the network is definitely better this week, eh?
Yes, much better.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, Sasha should be on any minute now.
Okay, we've got 6 more minutes to officially start. And
Do you think people got the reminder today, Sipho?
it was supposed to go an hour ago. I did check it this morning. It was still intact, so I certainly hope they did. And we've got attendees with us. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. We will be starting in the next 6 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, Elvin is confirmed that they did get the reminder. Thank you so much, Elvin.
Oh, thanks, Elvin. Okay, that's awesome.
And REFILOE, so on your side, just as we're waiting, I mean, we were having a whole conversation, and there's Sasha as well joining.
I was listening as you were talking.
Yeah, I was just waiting for Sasha to unmute her mic.
Hello.
There we go.
Sasha.
Sorry, I'm last minute. I had another presentation that had a lot of questions.
Nice to see you. Are you good?
Oh, strong.
Always.
Yes.
breathe. Then you need to ground us all.
Yes, we forgot to start with grounding last week with all our challenges with load shedding and everything. So we'll definitely start mindfully. We've got about 4 minutes to go, and welcome, Sasha. All of us are here now. And Sasha, we had a session yesterday already, but I mean, just to bring you up to speed, Lunga is joining us today, and he will be sharing his journey of working remotely. Lunga from Life Retreat. And then you met Werner last week, and you remember REFILOE. REFILOE was there last week as well, hey? Yes.
Yeah, I was.
There last week as well.
But this is not the same REFILOE. Hey, here's different.
It's the same.
It is the same.
Isn't that the beauty about being an African woman? We can change our hair as much as we want, whenever we want.
Ladies. Send them my way. I think it's the answer.
So Sash, I mean, today is all about working remote, you know, and the stress, navigating the stress factor and the productivity of that. But I mean, as we've been engaging about this, I think whether you're at home working remotely and whether you're in the office, you are experiencing some form of stress. So I think stress is definitely going to be a common thread, whether you're working remotely, whether you're back at work, whatever is happening. And then obviously looking at mindfulness as well as part of the solution to navigating not the new normal, the next normal. I think we're way past any form of newness. So we're just dealing with next and next. And perhaps any words from your side with regards to today's topic? You always have interesting questions to ask that get the conversation going.
Thank you, Sipho. My name is Sasha Muller. I am the convener of the Progressive Business Forum, which is a program of the ANC, which manages the dialogue between the party, the leaders within government, and the business community. This is a partnership program between Lifelong Learning and Life Retreat and the PBF. And this is because we see, and this is actually brought about first by Sipho, because she realized that our country's leaders also need the opportunity to understand mindfulness so that they can better lead. And this initiative is the start of that process. And I was speaking to a friend on the phone yesterday, and just talking about, and he said, Sasha, have you just really thought about what you're doing here with mindfulness, bringing mindfulness into a political party? Who would have even thought about it in that sense? And I'm not just talking about the ANC. I mean, the PBF is a program, so we are a lot more corporate in our approach and open. But obviously, we extend this invitation to party members as well, and those who work within the organization of the ANC, so are employed by the ANC for free. And I've gotten enormous feedback, especially during this COVID time, how it has helped so many using the skills, how it has helped me personally too. Even though I may know mindfulness, it's a great reminder. It's a great just touch into that, create that space. Now on working remotely, I think I know, but I clearly don't, because I feel like working at home, and please, those out there, attendees out there might agree with me. You think you can overcommit yourself. So because now I'm sitting in front of a desk and I have 8 hours, and that's on a good day, 8 hours, that means I can have 8 to 12 meetings a day, besides that the work that I have to do to implement it. So I literally came from a meeting and I came into this meeting, and things always run over. Things take much longer than we suspect when we're doing it digitally. The reason why I don't feel scared if it does is simply because most of our way as humans we communicate is not done through verbal experience. It's done through the things we cannot see, the non-verbal. And it's very difficult, and this is why I'm being extra hugging on the thing. You can express yourself a lot better on a Zoom if you are more expressive and using your hands, where if you saw someone in person, you'd be able to pick up a lot more. So you'll find you have to do a lot more explaining, and that takes more time. And because of that, we think we have this measuring tool about how long something will take, and it's taken a lot longer for most of us, and we need to give us time now to implement it. And then how do we manage our time? Should we actually be managing our time? And that's a decent question, because I read something from Harvard Business Review that said, as working remotely, we shouldn't be managing our time. We should be managing our energy.
Wow. Yeah.
There's never really enough time in a day for anything. So look at yourself and say, how much energy do I have? Okay, what can fit in with that? Because you need to compartmentalize the things that are important. You don't need to compartmentalize, but when you do what you love, you will take up all your time and you will have nothing left for yourself. And yourself is also equally important. Understanding that. So Sipho, I think maybe if I can start, there's a question with that is, how have you been managing yourself? If you've been managing it from what perspective? Because others might be managing different. Has it been time? Has it been energy? Has it been what I feel like doing? Has it been actually too much going on in the world, so I've just shut down, which I felt for the last week? Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you, Sasha, for that. And I think we can all take the opportunity during our slots just to also just respond to that question. I mean, again, this platform is all about us learning from each other. And I love how you mentioned energy. It is 12:02 and we're going to officially start the webinar. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our hour of business mindfulness, innovation and resilience. My name is Siphokazi Kwakweni, and I'm going to be your Masterclass facilitator, and I'm from the Lifelong Learning Academy. And as you can see, I am not alone. I hope you can see everyone like I can see them as well. But if not, you'll be able to meet everyone. And today we are focusing on working remotely and the stress that comes with that, and how do we become productive. But obviously, stress is quite a common thing, especially during this time, whether you're working remotely and whether you are at work. I mean, some of us have started going back to work from time to time, and that alone comes with a lot of stress. So it's going to be very interesting to hear from our panelists. And this is our second last masterclass out of the series, and I say series for this round, but we will definitely are planning on continuing. And we'll be wrapping up our series next week. And for next week, we want to invite all our participants. I mean, whoever is really interested in becoming a panel member, because we want to hear from you. We want to learn from you as to how you have been navigating, not the new normal anymore, but the next normal, because it changes every time. So we really invite you to come on board and share with us. And we're also inviting you to give us details of your businesses. A lot of collaborations and networking has happened in the past 8 weeks. I mean, a lot of people are starting to work together. I've had a number of Zoom meetings with other participants, and we really want to encourage a lot of collaboration. And the reality is that we cannot do any of this alone during these times. So wherever people can hold hands, but obviously we must sanitize our hands first before we can hold those hands. We have the opportunity to collaborate virtually. I mean, I met Werner virtually. I've not met him in real life, and I think we've had 3 interactions already. I feel like I've been working with you like forever. Anyway, without wasting any more time, I really want us to get into the crux of things. We always start our program with a mindfulness practice, and just really about grounding ourselves, coming into this space with intentions. I'm just adjusting so that I can get comfortable. So I'm going to invite you just to sit back and let's relax. I invite you to close your eyes, or you can just soften your gaze, whatever you're most comfortable with, and go into that space of silence, of stillness within you. And we can do this by connecting with our breath. Just become aware of the natural flow of your breath. And greet your breath this afternoon. Breathing with intention. And as we breathe with intention, we are acknowledging that our breath is the life force within us. It's the stuff that keeps us alive. Our breath powers the functioning of our body. It powers our heartbeat. It powers the function of our brain, of our mind system, of the whole entire system of the body. So just breathing with pure love, with pure intention. Just fill your body with fresh oxygen and releasing your breath gently, and just allow your body just to melt and to relax in this moment right here. And then when you're good and ready, I'm going to invite you to begin to come back into the space. You can open up your eyes. And I'm going to introduce you to my co-pilots. As I've said, you know, we need a lot of collaboration. We need to be working together, and I'm not alone. We've got amazing speakers today who are going to be talking to us about mindfulness, about working remote. And also we've got Lunga who's going to share his experience, and all of us will actually talk about our own experiences around how we've been navigating this. And I am going to open up to you, Trish, firstly, just to say your opening and welcome before I hand over to Werner.
Thank you, co-pilot. Lovely to see everybody, and thank you all for joining us today. Yes, working remotely is a very interesting one. I have found, first of all, sorry, I'm from Life Retreat, and our passion is wellness in the workplace. I am working from home most days, and I have found the only way to be successful or to manage this is to have a schedule. So I literally, when lockdown started, thought of every single thing that I need to do today, and that includes eating lunch, cooking, family time, exercise time, work is a priority. And I made a list of everything and approximately how long each one would take. And then I broke it into sections. And generally, I stick to the list about 80% of the time, which is really good because it keeps me on track. But when I don't, I find that I kind of fall apart, and so does everything else. For example, some days I'll think, I can't exercise at 7:30 because I've got admin to do. So I'll do my admin and then I'll exercise. And 100% of the time, I will not end up exercising. And the same happens with work. If I put other priorities, like maybe cooking in advance instead of working, you know, my work falls behind. So I have found that working with a schedule and trying to stick to it really, really, really helps me. It also feels less chaotic, more organized, and better for myself and my family, because family time is dinner at the table, and I prioritize that, and I don't feel guilty if I haven't been with my family during the day, because I know that that will be a priority. So if I can give you one tip, I would say make yourself a daily schedule and try and stick to it. It really, really does help. Then secondly, just a little thing that came up here, and Nati, I asked, how are you? And then a couple of people have asked, how are we? And replied. And I found that's very important, because what I found at work, mainly at work and sometimes with friends as well, is that I seem to be a lot of the time asking people how they are. But a lot of people have become so depressed and so down and self-absorbed that they're actually forgetting to ask others how they are. And it's vitally important that we don't only look after ourselves, but that we actually care for others and ask them how they are, see if they need help. And because, you know, when we weighed down, it's very easy to become obsessed with your life and yourself. But right now, we all need each other. We need each other in business, in personal life, in every single way we need each other. So what I would suggest along those lines is that today everybody shares what business they're in our little chat box here, and your contact details and a little bit about what you do, and let's try and support each other's businesses and share. I think it's really, really important. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Siphokazi and Werner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trish. And I mean, definitely, I do agree with you around having a schedule. It's definitely something that I also keep. And before, I used to write mostly about work, but now I've had to slot in other things that I need to do around the house, because it's not about the work only. It's just about now creating a balance. And even within a schedule, as much as you can try to stick to it, I think we also need to build in flexibility, because things do change. You know, and once you are also able to adapt to change, then you're also, you know, you're not so hard on yourself. And I know in the past, before I adopted flexibility, if I don't stick to something within my schedule, I'd be very hard on myself, and that also going to be very stressful on its own. But anyway, that's my tip around flexibility. Werner, let's hear from you around mindfulness and how we can continue to listen to the body and work with our body in navigating all of these challenges that we experience.
Yes, thanks, Sipho. I think firstly we need to first look at stress in terms of the way we're looking at it now, that there's something wrong with us, that we're stressing or that we're feeling depressed, right? It's actually absolutely normal what we're feeling right now. And I think if we weren't stressed or depressed, there's actually something wrong with us. Because as I mentioned last week, that our nervous system scans the environment looking for safety. And if there's a neuroception of danger, which there is outside, or life threat, we go into a fight-flight state. And if that doesn't work, we move into a shutdown state. So that's our nervous system's actually trying to protect ourselves. Okay. So a threat out there doesn't have to be real. It just needs to, it's our perception that there's a threat out there. So we all know there's a virus out there, right? So we're all perceiving this as there's a threat. So we would automatically go into a fight-flight state. Okay. The trick is that we need to sort of use the body as a resource to kind of identify where we are in terms of the state that we're in, and then to sort of ask ourselves, are we actually in danger? Is there actual life threat at this moment right now? So for instance, if we're sitting there right now, I mean, I doubt there's an actual danger or threat right now. I'm not too sure. I can't say for everyone, but not for me. So they automatically can give your nervous system a signal that you're safe right now. You can feel, you can use mindfulness, and you can feel the couch that you're sitting on, the support underneath you. And a very good grounding tool that we can use is our feet. it's quite far from our mind as well. So I often say, when things get quite overwhelming, especially in the body, it's quite difficult to become mindful of this, like all of a sudden this chest that's closed up and my breathing and my heart rate's going, things can get quite hectic. We move down to the feet, because often our feet aren't really activated in a fight, flight or shutdown state. And then you sort of take it back to the body where it's quite intense, and you start asking questions. What am I experiencing right now? And why am I stressed? And is there actual danger or life threat? And what is that danger? And oftentimes now, especially that we're stuck in our homes, it's a thought. So there's a thought of worrying of the future, worrying what might happen, the unpredictability. Because our nervous system like predictability. We like to know what's going to happen. At this moment, we don't know what's going to happen. And so we need to sort of establish these little micro moments throughout the day that we feel safe. And we'll eventually fall back and we'll go into a fight, flight, and we'll stress. We'll go into shutdown state, which obviously isn't great. And our perception about those things are that it's bad, right? But if we start understanding our nervous system and start becoming a bit more curious about these various states, instead of trying to just get rid of it all the time, then we can start working with it better, understanding why we're in that state, and then slowly moving out of it. And then, okay, I'm falling back, and now I'm moving back. Unfortunately, that's just reality of things. We're never really all the time, we're never relaxed all the time. I mean, maybe 5 minutes there, and then we like hours maybe in a fight, flight state. But that's perfectly normal, okay? So the best thing we can do right now, I think, is understanding our nervous system and understanding that it's actually trying to help us survive. Okay, and then we need to start becoming curious about these states. So checking in with the body, sort of what we're feeling in those various states, because it's very predictable. I mean, I can tell you what I feel in this fight, flight state and in the shutdown state. And all of us are different. And then you can start seeing what thoughts are there. And that's also quite predictable. You'll see there's a sort of a pattern that carries on and on and on. And then you can start questioning those things out. Okay. So that's just in terms of stress. But now we're actually talking about working remotely. Okay. Now on the nervous system level, in terms of your office that you're working in, you can start implementing things of, you need to bring in cues of safety. So that can be anything for you. For Sipho, it can be one thing. For me, it can be another thing. So I like putting in plants. I like working near close to sunlight, if that's possible for you. Just to sort of make it feel warm for me, comfortable. I like having open windows. I like to hear my neighbors speak, because I like to get that feeling that there's people around me. Okay. Because our nervous system like social interaction. We need social interaction to be able to feel safe. And at this moment, obviously, it's not possible for all of us. Okay, so bringing cues of safety. And then another thing you need to do, so just bringing cues of safety is not enough. You need to remove cues of danger. And you need to check with your body what is right and wrong. So in terms of, I could say, sound is one that you can work with. So high frequency sound, low frequency sound. You don't want to work somewhere where there's lots of traffic going on, loud noises, obviously construction maybe going on next door or something like that. You sort of want to remove those type of sounds, okay? And bring in soothing sounds, okay? The best thing you can do is probably play music in the background that doesn't have any words or anything like that. For myself, I like to put on a podcast where people talk. I don't necessarily listen to what they say, so I put it on a very low volume just so I hear a human voice, so I don't feel alone. Okay, because we don't like feeling alone, right? So yeah, that's something you need to experiment with. And the body is the best resource that's going to tell you which is right or wrong. If this works for you, if it doesn't work for you. And then also we need to start looking at stress from a holistic point of view. Yeah? I know mindfulness is the core of all of this, but we need to look at our sleep patterns, our nutrition, and all those other things. Are we getting out enough? we getting enough sun, vitamin D, all those type of things. Because if our nutrition isn't good enough, there's a direct pathway between the gut and the brain. If we keep on eating too much sugar, too much gluten, the gut sort of gives a message to the brain that there's something wrong, there's danger, and you'll go into a stress state. Fight, flight, or you'll go into a shutdown. The same with sleep. There's various things you can do for sleep. As Trish said, having sort of a pattern or a routine, trying to go to bed at the same time every night. More importantly, waking up at the same time in the morning. So you need to see, some people can function quite well with 4 hours of sleep. So that 8 hours thing doesn't work for everyone. Again, you need to play around and see what works for you. Yeah, and obviously movement is another good thing. We often, when we're stuck at home working remotely, we tend to sit a lot, especially if we've been in a fight, flight, or shutdown state. We often would go from the office sitting, and we'll go and sit, watch TV, or we'll go lie down. So we need to get out and move a bit. You don't have to go for rigorous exercise, but just walking in nature is a very good option. And then in terms of video conferencing is another thing. I mean, you see a lot of people now getting quite fatigued with all these meetings online. And I would suggest that one thing that gets lost in this video conferencing, and what Sasha said, is that the energies that we're communicating, the energies, that's our nervous system of communicating with each other. We're co-regulating each other. That's basically what it is. And we're helping each other feel safe. And that gets lost over video conferencing. So the best thing one can do about video conferencing, you won't be able to do it all the time, is to practice your listening skills. So instead of thinking of other things that you want to say, start listening to that person, listen to their voice, look at their eyes. All those type of things, and notice when you're talking. That's all my tips I've got for today.
We lost you a bit there, Werner. Your network was a bit choppy right at the end with your tips. But perhaps you can just wrap it up, just the last bit. I missed it. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
Yes, I don't know where I got lost, but I was just saying with video conferencing, practicing listening. That's something that's very, very important, that we need to train our listening skills and look out for cues of safety. And as I mentioned, that vagal nerve that we need to activate, that helps us feel safe, that's got direct connections with our neck. It's got connections with our vocal cords, so it will influence the frequency of our voice, muscles in our eyes. So all those type of things, that the nervous system sort of looks from here up. So if I'm sitting like this, talking, my nervous system will get messages of threat. But if I'm sitting there and I'm smiling like this, and you're looking at this, it's cues of safety. So I can directly influence your nervous system by just knowing that, by just sort of giving you the cues, your nervous system automatically, without you even thinking about it, will start feeling safe. Because this doesn't happen on a conscious level. This happens below our conscious level. We're not even aware of it. Okay. But we can bring our perception on neuroception, and then we can start responding better to it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Werner. And I mean, what you've said now directly leads us to working remote. So we've got REFILOE, who comes from the HR background. And obviously working remote is a different animal to managing staff within the office. So REFILOE, can you just share with us, I mean, from your experience, I mean, we've been now working remotely for some time. I think we're approaching the 5th month. And what are the trends that are coming up? And I mean, obviously this goes along with, you know, management styles, people's working styles. And I had a conversation with someone, just to come back to Werner's point around, you know, people have got their own rhythms. So I'm a morning person, you know, so I'm happy to be at my desk at 5 a.m., you know, just getting a lot of the admin out of the way so that by the time people are waking up, I'm able to engage. But I also met someone who actually says, no, I'm not a morning person. You know, I work late at night. You know, I want to sleep my morning and then I can be more productive. So, I mean, obviously now people's differences are also coming up. How do you manage and work with that? Thank you, REFILOE.
Thank you for the intro, Sipho. Well, working remotely is it's something very new for many of us in the workplace. And I think for most managers, they find it difficult to manage that and control it. In most instances, you find that managers are unable to manage performance. And like I think Sasha mentioned, energy management instead of time management. And in most cases, when you're in the office, you find that your time is actually managed. You work from 8 to 5, and you are in the office space. Your manager is there, your supervisors are there, and somehow there's some form of control when it comes to working in the office. And when it comes to working remotely, as Werner touched on a few challenges, the face-to-face supervision that you would have with your maybe your direct manager or your colleagues, and then there may be also a decline in performance or output, because there's, like you mentioned, there's a whole lot of other things that one has to do in between the day, and you kind of have to schedule it. You add in a couple of home things for you to do, unlike when you are in the office, and you may find that there's a decline in, and some managers have said that, there's a decline in performance outputs of their subordinates. Access to information is another problem that you may find that people go through when they have to work from home. So in my case, for example, I work from home sometimes, but sometimes I'm unable to finish off tasks because some things are actually in the office and physical, it's paperwork and so on. So that becomes a bit of a challenge for us to speed up, you know, and get the output going. And maybe a loss of belonging. You get lonely when you work from home. So those are the challenges that Werner touched on, and the distractions that come with it. And he actually mentioned a few solutions to that. Finding your workspace where you play music, you find, you know, stimulants that assist you in actually feeling like there's people around you. So those are some of the solutions. But when it comes to management of work now, how do you then help out with that? How do you as a manager manage that and actually get to control that environment? Because some employees will be different to others. So you've got people who are dedicated, you've got those who will just lounge around and do nothing for the day because they think it's a holiday. You know, I'm working from home, nobody knows what I'm doing. So what I've actually suggested in my area, at my workplace, is to have check-ins. So you have morning check-ins where you can come online, you can be on the phone, and you check in with everybody. You set your targets for the day. What am I going to do for the day? Or weekly targets or monthly targets, depending on what works for you. So if you're in sales, you obviously have maybe for the day, this is how much you must have done, or weekly, whatever measurable targets you can put in place so that you can ensure that work still continues while people are working remotely. And maybe outlining the expectations from myself as a manager, perhaps from yourself as an employee. This is what I expect from you, but also allowing flexibility. And this is very important. The management of energy per se, where you allow people flexibility because everybody has different circumstances and different work styles and different preferences. Sipho mentioned that she works better in the morning and someone else works better at night. So it's important to allow for that flexibility and that balance between what you expect from a person in terms of output and how you expect them to do it. So it's creating independence of how one should actually function or can function, or how one can actually do their work independently without you having to manage as a hawk. You know, some managers will come and say, okay, check in at 8 and at 10 we check in, and that really doesn't work. For you to get output, you need to give people independence, and there's a level of trust that comes with it. There's a level of maturity and trust that you build up with your employees. So it's important for the mindset of management to change when it comes to that. So manage output rather than managing the people, and don't make it a tedious function for them to work from home, because ordinarily they would be coming to work, and for some reason I find that people think that people just don't want to go to work, and we actually do want to go to work, because at work you make friends, you can get to work, you interact with people, there's a social aspect that comes with it. And when you're at home, you could be alone, and that creates the stresses and depressions that come with the loneliness and feeling disengaged with other people. So I think the improvement of communication while people are at home, whether you improve it with making the telephone calls as you go along throughout the week, these are, you know, video conferencing, emails on a regular basis. So that's how you can keep track of whether or not people are actually working. Because at the end of the day, as much as we say we work remotely, we give people independence, we still need to have some form of control and output that comes with it. And because business has to continue, performance needs to be at a certain level. And I think basically what we've done in my organization, for example, is we've set guidelines when it comes to working remotely. So, for example, the management of leave. How do you manage the difference between, because some people are at the office and some people are at home. So how do you manage the leave when it comes to that? So there's guidelines with regards to that. So our policy, for example, says if you can work remotely, you work remotely, that's fine. But if on that day you are unable to connect on that day because you have to go to the doctor, you have to do something else, then you must take leave just like everybody else, because they are not at. So it creates also a level of fairness. And look, it depends on how you want to structure these guidelines, but obviously they have to be fair and in line with not outside the scope of the labor relations. Because eventually some people, we've had people who've had very difficult times with people who are not actually delivering on what they need to. And how do you manage that? How do you then, not discipline, but how do you correct that behavior? When it comes to that, do you understand maybe there's difficulties with working from home, the home environment is not conducive for them to work from home. So it's important to understand those dynamics as people work from home, because not everybody is privileged enough to sit at home and have and be alone, for example, or not even have, or some people have kids that are running around and they require your attention, and those are the difficult things that one has to manage when it comes to working remotely. But I think having those opening up report channels that you allow people that flexibility and the freedom to do what they can do in a particular time in their own way, as long as output is there. So I think the main thing is changing the mindset of many employees and employers, changing the mindset of employees thinking that they are on holiday when they're working from home, and managers thinking that employees think that they are on holiday when they're working from home. So I think in a nutshell, I could say it's important to basically just allow for flexibility, but also allow document guidelines that will actually not govern everybody, but put everyone in one picture, so that if push comes to shove or where things go wrong, you are able to back yourself up as an employer, and the employees are also backed up in a sense. So accountability is something that still needs to be maintained, even though people are working remotely. I know I'm speaking outside the scope of mindfulness, but I'm just bringing it back to when it comes to business and maybe repercussions or things that may come up in terms of the challenges that you may face with particular employees, how do you then ensure if they take you, let's say, to the CCMA, how will you support your actions to say this person was not performing, they've been working from home, and this is what I wanted from them, they failed to deliver. Did you have things in place? Were they aware of what you have? So the basic principle is there a rule? Is it consistently applied? Did the person know about it? So once you have those three basic things covered, I think you can have a nice working relationship or relation with your employees and colleagues in general. I just have something to share quickly. It's really just pictures of working remotely, just for laughs, and maybe some of you will relate to this one. I'll share it quickly with you. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see it? Did I share it?
Yes, we've got.
Okay, there we go. So that's just someone who wakes up in the morning and says, I've rolled out of bed, put on sweatpants, and worked 8 hours from home. And that's how they look. And sometimes you find that that's how people are productive, without taking a shower, without doing anything. And management doesn't have privy of that, but people work and they're actually able to do what they're required to do. Just moving on to the next one. And this is what we don't want, right? What I mentioned, that employees think they're on holiday and managers actually think that people are on holiday. So your boss would say, you may work from home, but it's not a day off. And there you're sitting at the beach, having some cocktails. You're not supposed to do that. So in some instances, you find that we have such employees, and that's why it's important to have check-ins and things that are controlled so that people don't get to do that during their time. And this is just one that shows what my family thinks I do, what commuters think I do, what I think I do, and what I actually do. So some people are unproductive when they work from home. They just sit around at the laptop doing nothing. The intention is there, but the output or the action doesn't actually happen. Okay, no thanks, I'm working from home. That's to the pants. So you may find that some of us are still in our PJs and not informal do, but being comfortable is also very important when you work from home. And I think Werner touched on that, being comfortable in spaces and perhaps I think in what you're wearing and so on and so forth. So people, you work from home, someone asks how long since you left the house? And that's how you would look, like, I haven't left the house at all. Like, where can I go, especially now in lockdown? So this is where maybe you may find someone being depressed and stressed about working from home. And it's important that managers take cognizance of that and that they are aware of that. If you work at home and your boss sends you home early, where do you go? You know, in most instances, you don't have anywhere else to go, because especially with lockdown, we all supposed to be at home, and that's that. This is one that I like. I think I have done this before, where I have to send an email and I'm responding, I quickly go to the loo and you continue working. But also, it's productive. You can still be productive. You don't have to sit at your desk for you to do the work. You can be in a different space that is nicer for you, you know, more relaxing for you. This one says, welcome to working from home, the place where the hours are actually work and made up, and your pants don't matter. They really don't. What you wear doesn't really matter. You just need to be comfortable and make sure that you work the hours up during those times. And one does not simply work from home without distractions, and that is important. And that is important to note for management, for people who manage people who work from home. There are distractions, and as Werner said, you bring yourself back, because you will, at some point, your mind will wander. You need to bring yourself back. You need to be able to control what your mind does. And it's not necessarily distractions from outside, but you can be, your thoughts could be a distraction where you think for an hour or two, you sit around thinking about a holiday that you want to go on, and you realize, oh gosh, I've been sitting for 2 hours doing nothing. And that happens in the workplace as well. But I think most of the time when you are at work, there's a certain order that comes with not moving away too much from what you are required to do, because there's people around you who can see what you do. Pretty much every day is the same when you work from home. It's more like a Saturday you work, unless maybe for me, for example, I can work on a Sunday as if it's a Wednesday, because I just have free time there. But on a Wednesday, it can be my Sunday or my Saturday. And that's why I say it's important for managers to actually relax the boundaries and relax the rules around the rules of engagement around, or rather the output, the rules of output, and actually manage the output rather than the person. Whether I'm there or not, I could have done what I'm supposed to do on Wednesday, I do it on Sunday. But by the time Wednesday comes, I give myself a break. I spoke to my boss today and she was like, I don't mind, because I see you work in the evenings, in the mornings, and for me, it doesn't really matter as long as you bring out what you are required to do. And I think you find that most people, once you trust them like that, they actually perform better. Once you give them the independence, they perform better, they move, because they know that there's a level of trust, and I need to maintain that level of trust and accountability for my managers. This is one that I like. Working from home means I can start drinking earlier. So by 12 o'clock, I can still have my glass of wine and still start working. Unlike drinking my glass of wine at 5 o'clock when I get home. So there's enjoyment in that. And that's all I had for you today. I will answer questions if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, REFILOE. You reminded me of my sister. She has the option of working at home or in the office, and she chooses to go to the office because she feels more productive in the office, you know. And I know in our conversations that we're having earlier on this week in preparation for this webinar, Werner kept on referring on about regulating, you know. It's about really and knowing your energy. So I can also relate to what you're saying, because maybe on a Sunday, I'm feeling very inspired. I've got all these kinds of ideas and I just want to get on to work, you know. And Tuesday might be a day that I don't feel a lot of energy, because maybe there's other things that always distract me that come up. And I think the one thing that we always have to remind ourselves during this time is that we are in the middle of a pandemic. So there's also, I mean, we're also talking about social media and the news as a distraction, you know. So while we're trying to navigate all of the challenges of stress, we're also facing the loss of life, the loss of business, the loss of many things, which obviously then add on to the stress. But before we move on to Lunga, I would like to open up to our participants, if there's any questions for now for Werner and for REFILOE. And Lunga will be sharing with us his experience and what has kept him going during this time. So any questions from our participants?
I like the one comment that we've got, and that is written guidelines are an excellent idea. So I think maybe the more we put in writing, the better our boundaries are. Employees and employers. What do you think, REFILOE?
Yeah, definitely. As I said, when it comes to different kinds of scenarios where then you have to maybe take action for non-performance or something like that, what guidelines do you have? What paperwork do you have that actually says that this person was aware of what they were required to do? So it protects both yourself and the employee, because also the employee knows the expectations and the ways of doing things. And you also know that this has been communicated to our employees, and this is basically what guides you all together. So that creates the good relations between the two of you, especially when you're working from home. So you have the guidelines. Perhaps some guidelines might be more flexible than others. Some are stringent, depending on the type of organization you work for. For example, I work with artisans, and a lot of them can't work from home, obviously. So they have to come in. But in that it's not remote working, but we've introduced a short time. So you come in, you do what you're required to do, and then you go home. It's exactly the same concept as working at home. You check in, you do what you're supposed to do, and then you can relax, as long as those things are guided. But the guidelines must move away from managing time, as Sasha said. Don't manage time and say, I want 8 hours of your time. I could do a lot more in 3 hours than I could in 8 hours if I was sitting at home. So people should be allowed to, spread out their work and the output the way they can, but making sure that the deliverables and the standards are set such that all of you, both employers and employees, have a common understanding.
Sipho, I'm looking forward to hearing Lunga, because Lunga is actually a colleague of ours, and he has absolutely excelled working from home and coming back to work. He's been extremely adaptable, very productive, and I'm dying to hear how he's done it, how he's been so successful at what he's done. But before you hand over to him, I'd just like to mention something, and that's just a little tip on mindfulness and cheerfulness. And REFILOE, you're in a bright color today, and I'm also in a bright color. And when I chose this color, I chose it by choice, because I thought of Lunga. And he always is immaculately dressed. And there's 1 or 2 days where I'll arrive at work and he's got a red tie and a red handkerchief. No matter how I'm feeling, it uplifts my spirits, and it lifts up everybody else's spirits that he comes across. So the way we present ourselves is so important to not only uplifting ourselves, but uplifting others. So that's just a small tip to add to yours, Werner. And then I'm going to hand back to REFILOE. And please keep asking us questions for our experts.
Trish, if I can just add on to what you've just said now, somebody once said to me, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you do good. Any input from your side, Werner, before we hand over to Lunga?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't dress up and clean yourself up if you're working from home. Spray the cologne, aftershave, and like you say, if you look good, you feel good, and it's absolutely true.
Thank you. Lunga.
And also, thanks for mentioning self-discipline. It's absolutely vital. And that's where I find having my schedule enables me to self-discipline. If I don't have a schedule, I can't self-discipline. But it's so valid, such a valid point.
Thank you. So Lunga, let's hear from you.
Thank you guys for the intro. Help me calm down a little. Quite nervous here. All right, thank you for having me. And of course, I would like to start off with a quote of one of the personal leadership mentors that I follow, Jim Rohn. He says, the right question to ask at a job is not what am I getting out of this job, but it's rather what am I becoming. So I'll be basing my whole presentation on that. So we can also, you heard my name is Lunga Jakuja. I'm a radio DJ. I'm a sales assistant at Life Retreat. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a brand ambassador for a clothing company called Boss Life. And I'm also an aspiring life coach. We can all agree that the pandemic has been hectic on all of us. Some more than others. We can agree on that. I have 2 core values that I hold very close to my heart, and that is family and relationships. So with family being one of my core values, it was always challenging for me to take work home. So now you can imagine working from home. So I strongly believe that wherever you are, you need to be there. If you are at work, be at work. If you are at home, be at home. Now all of this came under one roof. So I had to adapt. So I quickly realized that I can't change everything that's happening around me, but I can actually change how I respond to it. I had to come up with a plan as to how can I actually overcome the depression, the frustration, and the doubts that I have about my future. So, I mean, the frustrations on those salary cards, and I'm talking about deals that are on hold, and being the person that I am, because I'm obsessed with personal development and personal growth. So if I'm not working towards something, it feels like, it's like I'm not living at all. So I felt stuck, and I'm very optimistic, and I felt like a pessimist. So I knew that I actually needed a plan. So I realized that I need to change how I feel, and I need to do it not only by focusing on who's going to do it for me, but on how can I change it myself. So the circumstances have changed. There's a new norm, as Siphokazi calls it, the next norm, on to the next one. But I reached out to one of the people that I admire in my field. He managed to diversify his portfolio for a number of years. So I reached out to him and asked him, how is he managing to keep his head above water during these challenging times? And he replied, and the reason behind that was that we sometimes look at people that inspire us, people that we look up to, and we say, wow, based on what the work that they put in. But instead of pushing a little bit further and ask, how do they do it? So I did exactly that. So I realized that life retreat needs to survive. And if life retreat survive, that means I survive. And in understanding as well that my family is not counting on my boss to survive. My family is counting on me to make sure that we survive. So I took ownership of the whole situation, and I said, what can I do based on where I am? And working from home, working remotely, understanding that I still got my laptop, we still got an online shop that we can run, even though we can't be in the shop, but we can actually utilize and take advantage of the people that's going to be shopping online, even though they never shopped before because of the new norm. So Jim Rohn, again, once said, work harder on yourself more than you do at your job. So I downloaded a book that was recommended to me early this year by Greg. He said the book is titled The Leader Who Had No Title. So I indulged in that book and I spent more time reading on it because I knew that I need to work on myself. Because the reason for that we need to work on ourselves is because we've been taught that you need to give, you need to be that helping hand, or you need to encourage, motivate people. But we never taught that you can't give what you don't have. So based on the fact that I knew how I felt inside, I was frustrated, I was depressed, and either way, I still had to perform. But how do I do that without saying that just knock on each and every customer's door or just keep on sending emails? I said to myself, how do I change the way I feel in order that I can actually pass this on to the next person? So we all have to lead where we are planted. And that's something that I picked up from that book. So if we pick a performance, if we choose a peak performance and personal leadership, the organization will definitely survive. So I committed myself on sending emails on our current clients and also reaching out to new potential clients, let them know that we are trading, we are working from home. We can send whatever product that they need we can send whatever product that they need via our online shop that we are still operational. When the orders were placed, I made sure that I send the order to the client within 2 days. If it's longer than that, I send an apology gift just to make sure that I keep the customer still satisfied. This involved basically me constantly communicating with suppliers, clients, and of course my director, where to make the necessary payments. So a lot of times we hear that you need to be committed, but commitment doesn't necessarily mean I will do it for a short period of time, but commitment is saying I will do it long after the mood I set it on has surpassed. And the pandemic had got rid of that mood, so I had to find a way to bring it back. So focusing on building our online shop, one meaningful conversation at the time, because I love people and I had to reach out to a mindset that says, you know what, not everybody is going to be as calm as you try to be, or as understanding, or trying to cope as you are trying to be. Some people are frustrated and they don't know how to deal with the new norm. So I had to learn to be more understanding when customers lash out, because I knew if I could get the customer to actually buy and get the service that they need, they'll be able, when the next time they sit in a Zoom meeting, because there's going to be a lot of those, they'll be able to mention life retreat, and then potentially getting another client. So that was the mindset every time that I would communicate to a client. You've heard that a lot of people believe that happiness is on what you acquire, on what you get. But I believe that true happiness is not on what you get, but it's actually on what you become. So the process, I believe the stage that we are in will actually give birth to you. So it basically introduce you to you. Because regardless of what's happening, even though it's happening around us, but how we respond to it determines exactly what type of people that we are. That's the mindset that I actually believe in. Because even though you could say things are happening around me, but how do I respond to it? So I'm sure you've noticed that the people we celebrate, celebrities, athletes, and all these people that we look up to, we celebrate all their achievements. So we look at them when they collect their awards, their trophies, they normally cry. We can all agree that it's tears of joy. But if you were to sit down with one of them and have a conversation just to understand what is happening in their mind as they go up to collect that trophy, I'm sure they'll be able to tell you that when they go up to collect that award and now they are labeled a success, they're having flashbacks about the process that they had to go through. I believe this pandemic is a process. Because either way, it's all about how do we respond to it. Is it easy? Is it easier saying, you know what, this will pass? But it's a matter of how do I actually come out on top? How do I actually, because there's still people finding creative business ideas in the pandemic. And the same thing with regards to kids going back to school. There are kids that's going to go to the next grade next year. Now, instead of saying I'm disadvantaged because of A, B, C, and D, I don't have that, the question you should actually be asking is, how can I be part of that group that's going to the next grade next year? So understanding that the people that we celebrate, they also have a process to go through, understanding that there's a journey, understanding that the challenges that we face, they actually introduce us to us, maybe they even expose you to yourself. So because life is both opportunity mixed with difficulty, and sometimes it's more difficult than opportunity. But the question is, worrying about the things that we can't control, will that ever bring us on top? So in closing, I'll say, attitude is the difference maker. A lot of people have heard this, I'm sure you've heard this. With a positive attitude, you can do anything. I don't get that, because if you look at it, attitude is the difference maker. It doesn't necessarily mean you can do anything. I don't care how positive or how my attitude is, you won't allow me to do an operation in your child. I would say, bring the scalpel there, and you say, are you a doctor? And I would say to you, no, I'm not, but I feel positive, I can do this. But you say, get out of here and get me a real doctor. But if you had two doctors, possibly from the same school, maybe their credentials are actually the same, but you could actually flip a coin and choose the one on the left and choose the one on the right. But the difference is that the one on the right has a great attitude. You will choose the one on the right. Why? Because attitude is a difference maker. So it's all about how do we respond to the whole pandemic. So as I'm sharing this, and I like the fact that Trish herself actually told me that, you know what, Lunga, I see the difference in you. But it didn't happen overnight. I had to spend time reading those books, spend time reading. There are two books that I'm actually spending time reading, because I understood I can't, if I can't change me, I can't change anything around me. And there are two words that I live by: accountability and making selfishness fashionable. Let me explain a little bit about selfishness, because we are told we need to give. So we go around life expecting compliments from people who don't even compliment themselves. So I'm saying to myself, let me compliment me, let me invest in me, that when the next person sees that, they will find it easy for them to actually compliment, or they will find it easy for them to actually identify and notice their work that I put in. But it's not about them, it starts with me. Okay, that's it from my side, sports. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Lunga. And we share the same passion for Robin Sharma. And for those who are asking about the book, this is the book, The Leader Who Had No Title. I'm also currently reading this book, and it is definitely very inspirational. And it is a modern fable on real success in business and in life. And I mean, obviously, as we're navigating this crazy normal, not even a new normal anymore, it goes back to balance. And I think some of the words that have come up in everyone, it's around mindset. Mindfulness talks about compassion. I mean, when we're working with people and when we're managing people, I think for all of us, we need to be very compassionate with ourselves because we are all going through this. And I don't want to say a lot. I just want us to be able to open up for questions. We are also running out of time. Trish, any questions that we need to be attending to?
Yes. Someone's asked here, Sipho, I understand that working from home is more suitable to Generation X. Are all employees capable of working from home, given that some employees and tasks need more supervision? That's a very interesting question. Maybe REFILOE could answer that.
I answered for there, and I said in my comment, I said, look, that's true that some tasks or employees need supervision, but depending on the type of environment that you work in, you can still supervise remotely. But it solely depends on the business that one is in. In terms of the capabilities there, I don't think it has, in most cases, I don't think it really has anything to do with the generations perhaps, but it's just commitment that is there to know that I'm still at work and there's a new way of doing my work, and supervision thereof will depend on the manager. So if for example, you have an employee that requires constant supervision because of not necessarily the task that they have to do, but maybe because of the type of employee that they are, you can still do that by calling them, requesting certain things. I mean, there's many ways now of getting feedback from employees while they're at home. I know one of, and this is not working, well, it is working remotely or learning remotely. One of our artisans came to me to say, look, can you please send this can you send this WhatsApp to the teacher of my daughter's teacher? Because I want to show them that they're done. So they take pictures of that and they send. So that's another way of, there's many different ways of managing or actually supervising things. But there's certain tasks, like I mentioned in my environment, we work with artisans, engineers, and so on. So it's physical work that has to be done. You can't do it remotely. Therefore, in those cases, then remote working is not possible. But where it is possible, it's just finding ways of supervising remotely.
And one example,
I think a lot of businesses, sorry, Sipho, a lot of businesses are checking in at 8 every morning or whatever, and that seems to be working really well for them. The check-ins in the morning. Sash, I think are you still doing your check-in in the mornings? The PBF.
Yeah, we don't do it every morning. We do it once a week. On a Friday, and it turns out to be a 3-hour process, but we go through the status of everything, and then there's a midweek check-in where I just call each person individually.
And you find that helps a lot?
You know, the one big positive thing since COVID is actually we know now what we do each other, you know, what the others are doing, when before we'd work independently and maybe. And obviously the staff meeting is the first thing that always goes when you're working in the office because everything else is so busy. And now because we've made Friday mandatory, and if they can't come, there needs to be a reason why. I think has brought the team spirit together. Everybody knows what everyone else is up to. They do their own little update. What I'm loving now is that the presentations have become so exciting that people are throwing jokes in as the first slide, where it used to be very serious. So yeah, I'd say that sort of check-in really helps. We do our check-in, we reflect on a matter of the week. As I said, there's been a lot of influence of COVID within our group. So we talk about it and we unpack our feelings before we actually get into the business of the day.
And just to share from our experience, I mean, right at the beginning of lockdown, we started off by checking in every day. And then obviously with time, we were able to structure ourselves. Then we moved to checking in twice a week, which was Monday and then Thursday. Now we don't really, I mean, now we check in, yes, definitely on a daily basis via WhatsApp. And I mean, I work within the youth space. So we've got groups where we're engaging with young people, we're engaging as colleagues. And actually what has happened now, whereas before we were limited by physicality, because, you know, you have to be in front of me to engage with me. Now people are always available and accessible. And obviously it also goes back to being able to set those boundaries again, you know, so it is finding that sweet spot of regulating and also just being available as you engage in with your team. I mean, this morning we were up, I mean, people are already engaging as early as 6 a.m., you know, and it's people just working, and you can see and feel people are working, and we've become more connected for some reason. I mean, obviously, because I guess absence also makes the heart grow fonder, but we've become really, really connected. And we are also spending a lot of time, you know, getting to understand how people are feeling. And we also have a designated counselor within our complement. So if you need counseling anytime, you can always reach out to your counselor. I had my session yesterday because sometimes things get very heavy and you get very emotional because as much as we are trying to work, we are still, I mean, people are losing their lives. Yeah. And then any closing remarks? We are definitely over our time.
Yes, I have had quite a few businesses saying that they've found a reshuffle of designations because they found that some people simply are not working at home or incapable of working at home. And they are actually letting down their teams and their organizations. And some owners have actually taken it on to give other people those jobs temporarily, and some of them are actually blooming in those jobs. And these are companies that just can't afford to keep all the employees on. And at the end of the day, is it going to be survival of the fittest, or is it, as Lunga mentioned, attitude, positive attitude? Is that's what's going to save our jobs at the end of the day? Because unfortunately, a lot of people are losing their jobs daily, and sadly, not all of those jobs are redundant. Other people are stepping into them because they're just more capable of working from home. So it's become quite a shift in everything and job descriptions. Are you finding that? Anybody else?
100% Trish, for me, people's job descriptions have completely changed. Because of the work remotely, I love the thing about defining the space of work remotely, because many organizations, I believe, don't have that. And even though we're trying to assist to ensure that people are able to work remotely, we haven't defined how does that actually look, because generally employment contracts have this thing of talking about this 9 to 5, but it's not like that, as we say. So yeah, I'll definitely be reaching out to REFILOE about how we can look at that a bit better as far as working remotely.
I was actually reading a post this morning by Robin Sharma, the same author who wrote the book that Lunga was talking about. And he's talking about just the 5 trends of 2020. I'm not going to go through everything, but I mean, some of the stuff has come up here. And he talks about, it's the first time I was hearing this word, and I Googled it. It's Darwinism of it's basically the evolution of entrepreneurship, the evolution of businesses. And he talks about, this is an amazing time for personal transformation and business acceleration. And how the groovy days are gone, and it is definitely about the fittest, you know, the fittest will survive. And he talks about the reality of that. And he mentions how businesses need to shed excess expenses and seek out operational efficiencies, rework your shops. I mean, if you're talking about redefining people's job descriptions, and basically it's an opportunity for business to build a 100% or times 100 better enterprise. So while I mean we are going through the challenges, it really does present an opportunity for evolution. He talks about false optimism and the reality of the fact that we are in a global financial crisis and it's not about to get better. And we need to accept that. And in that way, when we accept that, we become creative. So how can we be creative to find our way out of this? He talks about digital domination. I mean, obviously, we are all online and everything is going online. And he's talking about the FANGs who are basically soaring during this time, which is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, you know, so your Zooms, your Shopifys. And then he speaks about the reverse of globalization and how the world is no longer small, because now we can't just get onto a plane and go, you know, and just visit a country and so on. So the world has become quite big because now we are all locked in our countries. The borders are closed and we are forced to look inward. So even there is an opportunity for production to happen locally, for local businesses, for local markets. And lastly, the fifth trend, which is very, very relevant to our conversation, he talks about human awakening. And that is about personal mastery. It's about personal development, what Lunga was talking about, and how the old ways must die for a new and a better way to rise. So, I mean, REFILOE has spoken about management styles, working styles, you know. So all of this forces us to do things differently and to evolve. That's my last piece.
For Lunga, please share your other books' names here. I think people are really interested in hearing more about the books that you've been reading. That'll be awesome, and how they've helped you.
Okay. So,
and I love this comment, Lunga. I don't know if you've read it yet on the Q&As. Enthusiasm seems the best remedy. Where staff share a common goal, there is a work ethic that isn't determined by work location. I love that. Very wise words from somebody online. Thank you for sharing. Lunga, yes, will you share your books with us?
All right, so it's the leader who had no title, Robert Sharma, and then the second one that I'm currently busy with is the Richest Man in Babylon. And the third one, I'm still busy with that one as well, as The Man Thinketh by James Allen.
What's the third one? Sorry, what's the third one called?
As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah,
it's
a powerful book.
I got full sleep. Yeah, that's it.
That's a very powerful book, As a Man Thinketh. And if I can add on to your list, Lunga, the other one, which is his latest one by Robin Sharma, is the 5 a.m. Club, especially if people are looking for, you know, setting routines and how you can start your day. And Lunga is a radio DJ and he does the 5 a.m. show, and I always call it the 5 a.m. Club. Any last words in closing? REFILOE, Werner, Sasha?
Yeah, I'll just mention, it's not from a business point of view, but it's what will get us through, I think, but from a stress point of view, it's not looking at it from a survival of the fittest. It's not me against them. Surviving this will be mutual help and cooperation. So we need each other. So it's very important to identify support systems. So identify people that we trust and that we can share our feelings with, and that's able to listen to us. In the end, that's going to help us regulate quite successfully. Yeah, that's my closing.
Thank you, Werner. Thank you. REFILOE?
I think from my side, we've touched a lot on working remotely, and I think today was very, very informative for me. I mean, I think Werner touched a lot on certain aspects and things that tools that you can use that are not necessarily computer-based and, you know, your phone, your printer and stuff. Tools that you can use to be comfortable while working from home. And I think generally, it's a learning process, and it's something that we all get to know. And eventually, as Sipho, you said, it's the new normal or the next normal, whatever you call it. So
the no normal. I think it's just the no normal. There is no normal.
And it's something that we transition. Something that we transition to. You mentioned something about your organization being dynamic and actually changing. Personally and also organizational are redefining themselves. So an example here, when we were working 50%, okay, we are 50%, only 50% of our employees are coming into the work, but we're able to do the work. Now we're looking at it and we're saying, but did we really need all of these hundreds of people for us to be able to function effectively? Or do we redefine the jobs then and move people to places where they can actually perform better? And it's actually a process of getting to redefine ourselves as an organization. We get to redefine ourselves personally as employees as well, working from home and being managers as well. So I think this pandemic has taught us a lot, and it still has a lot to teach us. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, REFILOE. Lunga, last words?
Okay, my last words start by saying thank you guys for having me. I feel like Jim Rohn said the first time he did public speaking, he stood up, his mind sat down. But yeah, I hope that's not the case for me today. All these three books that I mentioned that I invested time reading, they have one thing in common. Any success requires work. I mean, there's no secret to work on. There's no other way around it. You need to go up the staircase. That's the only way. And if we are willing to go the distance, I'm sure we'll see the results. So those are my closing words. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lunga. Sasha.
Yeah, I'm going to close on a completely different note, because I think we spoke about stress when we opened up. And I realized I had a call with Trish earlier in the week, and I realized I was focusing on all the negative things happening and getting stressed out by that. And she said something very interesting. She said, well, do you remember the simple thing of just practicing gratitude? And what I did is I physically sat for 10 minutes and I wrote down all the things that I could be grateful for right now. And it helped move my internal perspective of the anxiety I was feeling. So it's a small tip, but made a big shift for me. And I hope it can help others too. When you're looking at everything going on here, especially with COVID, or you probably know someone who's got COVID and the stresses around you maybe getting it, count your blessings. And don't just do it mentally. Try and even write it down. And it helps move and shift things for you internally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sasha. Trish.
I feel like that person on the podium, Lunga. Sash, listening to you and Lunga and everybody else today actually makes me feel quite emotional, because for me, this is a great connection. I really look forward to our Thursday webinars. I feel like we've got a community here. And it's so important in these times where we are isolated. So I thank all the attendees and all the panelists. I really, really, really feel quite honored to be surrounded by such beautiful people. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sipho.
Thank you, Trish. And in closing on my side, so next week we are opening up the panel to the participants. We want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. So please join us again at the same time, same place. And load shedding has been good to us. There's no load shedding today. And we really, really want to connect and keep this community going. I mean, Trish is right. This is our happy place. This platform really brings us hope. I think in the past couple of weeks before we joined, we either come in depressed or sad or something, but once we are here together, everything changes. So I want to express my gratitude to everyone on this platform to our attendees for really bringing us hope as well. And we want to continue sharing the hope with everyone. And with that, I would like to say, I normally say namaste. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, everybody. Have a great week. Have a good week.
And see you
Thank
next
you,
week.
you too. Bye.
Next week. And please be ready to share with us, attendees. Next week, it's on you. You guys need to inspire us, please.
Cheers.